morning, everybody. So I just want to welcome you to today's webinar presented by Professor Prem Jain, and it's on the power of compounding. So another one in the series of the webinars that ZAMSA has had. So we do hope that we enjoy the presentation. And I will now give the floor to Prof. Prof, you can proceed, please. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, everyone. I'm very happy, and I would like to thank the Zambia Mathematical Sciences Association, Dr. Muzundu, for giving me this opportunity. So I hope I have access to sharing of the screen. So let me go on that. Are we there now?
Yes. If you can just maximize it, and then we're good to go.
Okay. Yeah, sorry for that. So we are there now. All right. So this I'm going to talk on this concept of power of compounding, which is a very useful concept. Of course, not only in financial matters, where it is, of course, not very important, but even in academic matters like population growth and energy consumption, GDP and debt management, and even in COVID proliferation. So it has many applications. So it is good to know this concept and understand this concept for everyone. In fact, human mind is not able to comprehend the enormity of the power of compounding. Human mind generally thinks linearly. So it is all the more important. This talk, I'm not an expert in financial matters. My expertise is in solar energy and climate change issues. But this is a kind of my hobby, and I have prepared this talk and have been adding to this talk little by little as with new experiences and new things. And that is the reason I have given this talk at a number of forums which are listed here. And a little bit of COVID model, I'm giving it for the first time. And depending on the mathematics appetite, I give without mathematics at some forums, but here I know there are experts in mathematics, so there will be a bit of mathematics contained in that. So I will be starting with the concept. First, to start with the two illustrations to make the concept clear. And during those illustrations, I will be asking some questions. And anybody out of the audience who might have happened to attend one of the earlier lectures, please may not answer because you will know the answer. So when I ask the question, let other audience respond to those questions. So I will be talking first on the concept and then try to show with a little mathematics that how compounding is tantamount to exponential growth, and then go how it can really help in the wealth management and your financial management, and then go briefly over the debt issue which the country is facing, and finally give a small model for COVID in understanding how COVID spreads. So I will start with this illustration. What I'm saying is that I have a piece of paper in my hand, this A4 paper, and I fold it. I fold it once, then I fold it 2 times, and then I fold it again, and I keep folding it 52 times. I'm folding it once, twice, and like that. You imagine that you have a sufficiently large paper, because otherwise folding it 52 times is not going to be possible. So my question to you is, just guess. You don't need to make accurate calculation. Just guess what may be the thickness of the pile of paper, just roughly, 10 centimeter, 50 centimeter, 100 centimeter, whatever. So I would like you to guess, maybe have 2-3 answers on that. If you can give me on the chat. Can someone come up? What do you think will be the thickness of the pile of paper after 52 folds of a sheet of paper? Any guess? Just a wild guess, as I'm saying. It can be in centimeter, millimeters, meters, whatever. Any hands up? I hope you have followed the question. Should I repeat the question?
Yes, Prof, you can repeat.
Should I repeat?
We got the question.
Okay. So
And
I would like to see at least one answer, or possibly 2-3 answers.
we have posted in the chat.
Okay, it is there. Okay, so how do I go? Okay, what is the answer? Because I'm not seeing the chat here. What is the answers?
There's 52 millimeters and 52 centimeters.
Okay, all right. 52 millimeters and 52 centimeters. So now these answers, yeah, these are the kind of answers I generally get. There's nothing wrong. But if you really calculate, you will see the enormity. And it will show you the power of compounding. Every time you are folding, in one fold, there are 2 sheets. When you fold it 2 times, it becomes 4 sheets. When you fold it 3 times, it becomes 8 sheets. So the number of sheets is doubling up. And the pile of these sheets of paper after 52 fold, can you believe it is going to be from here to the sun and back? That pile of paper will be more than the distance from here to the sun and back. I'm not just talking, I will show you mathematically approximately how it is. Anyone believes that? Look, this is showing you the number of sheets. With one fold, you can see there are 2 sheets. With 2 fold, 4 sheets. So every time the number of sheets is doubling up, as you can see. So that with 10 fold, the number of sheets is 1024. 1024 is like, I can take it approximately 1000. I'm rounding it off downward, so that it becomes a round of two rims. 10 folds gives 1024. I'm taking it as 1000 sheets, which means it becomes nearly 2 rims, and each rim is about 5 centimeters thick. You can measure that. So it is 10 centimeters. So in 10 folds, the thickness becomes 10 centimeters. Now you are going to make another fold from 10 fold to 20 fold. So each 10 folds give you 1024 times, because this will be 10 centimeter, then 20 centimeter, 40 centimeter, 80 centimeter, and like that. So 20 fold will give you 10 centimeter times 1024. Again, I round it off to 1000. So it becomes 10,000 centimeter, which is 100 meter, or which is 0.1 kilometer. Then you go from 20 folds to 30 folds. So 0.1 kilometer times every 10 folds gives you 1024 times, as we saw in the first time. So and I'm rounding off again 1024 to 1000. So it becomes 100 kilometer. From 30 to 40 folds, it will become 100 kilometers times another 1000, which is 100,000 kilometers. And 50 folds will become 100,000 times another 1,000, which is 100 million kilometers. And 52, you have to do 2 more folds, so which will be 4 times 100 million kilometers, which becomes 400 million kilometers. Earth-Sun distance is 150 million kilometers. So the return Earth-Sun distance is 300 million kilometers. So the pile of paper is more than the return Earth-Sun distance. So I hope it is clear. It is not just I'm giving a number out of nowhere, but I'm showing you actual calculation. In another way, just to grasp the enormity or the size of the pile, it is more than the Earth-Sun return distance. Earth's circumference is about 40,000 kilometers. So this pile can go around the Earth 10 times. It can go around the Earth not 1 or 2 times, but 10,000 times. This pile is as thick as going from Lusaka to Livingston return journey 400,000 times. Or alternatively, if you drive a car at a constant speed of 150 kilometers round the clock, it will take you 300 years to cover the thickness. Just to amplify the same concept again with another illustration, if there is any question, you are free to ask at this time or at the end, whichever way you want. Otherwise, I can start with the second illustration and then I will go into a little bit of mathematics. Now, this second illustration is regarding the chess. Chess, as you know, it contains 64 squares. Chess was invented in India in the 16th century. And at that time, we used to have the kingdoms. The person who invented the chess, he took it to the king, sorry, and showed the game. The king was very happy. And he asked him that you have invented such a beautiful, such an intelligent game. You ask anything and I will give you. You know, that is how it used to be during those olden times. If the king is happy on some of his subject, he will ask him to ask whatever he. So the person said, no, sir, I'm living in your kingdom. I'm happy and I need your mercy and all that. The king again asked, no, you should ask something. And when the king insisted, he said, sir, give me rice. The king was looking at him. He thought, such a stupid man. I'm giving him chance to ask for diamonds and golds and anything, but he's asking for rice. So the king asked his minister to come and give him rice as much as he wants, 1 sack or 2 sack or whatever. So what he said is, what I want is just put 1 grain of rice on the first square, 2 grain of rice on the second square, 4 grain of rice, and you keep doubling up the grains of rice, and whatever you get on the 64th square, you give me that much rice. Of course, the king was not amused. He was very unhappy that he gave him a chance, lifetime chance, to ask for all the treasure, and he's just asking for the rice. The food minister came back sweating after a couple of hours, and he said, sir, we don't have that much rice in our whole kingdom. And the king was really very surprised how that can be. So let me show you again by calculation how it happens. In fact, even today, not only in the 16th century, but even today, the production or the word cereal production is far below what comes in the 60 full of rice myself to make, and I weighed it and then I counted the grain of rice. Of course, it will vary from rice to rice because some grains are larger, some are smaller, but this is good enough. So what I found was the mass of an average size grain of rice was 0.0168 gram, or you can say 60 grains of rice weigh 1 gram. Now again, for ease of calculations, I assume 64 grains. I am again lowering down the weight because 64 is a multiple of 2, 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, 64. So it will round off the calculation, it will ease off the calculation. So you can see on this chessboard with 64, these squares are not uniform, but you can see you go 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, and on this square you become 64, which I take it as 1 gram. And then you again keep on doubling, 2 gram, 4 gram, 8 gram, 16, 32, 250, and it becomes 1024 gram, which I round off to 1 kilogram. Same way it continues doubling up, and it becomes 1024 kilogram, which I round off to 1 ton. Then you keep on doubling, and here after 10 squares, it becomes 1024 tons, which is 1 kiloton. Then after another 10, it becomes 1024 million tons, which is 1024 kilotons, which is 1 million tons. And it becomes a billion ton here. And there in the 64th square, it becomes 128 billion tons. If you make more accurate calculation, mass of an average size is this, and number of rice grains on 64th will be 2 to the power 63 because it is doubling up. So it becomes 9.22 times this number of rice. So it gives you 1055 billion tons, which is in the same range, that was 125 billion tons. And the current world, the interesting thing is current world annual cereal production is just 2 billion tons. So what he asked was roughly 80 years of world cereal production of the whole world as of today. So that is the power of compounding. Now what does it have to do with compounding? Let me explain that, because I'm talking of doubling. How is it related to compounding? Let me explain in the next few slides. If there is any question, you are again free to ask, welcome to ask, or now or at the end. Okay, if there is none, let me move now. So what is compounding really? In compounding, an asset generates earnings which are then reinvested in order to generate their own earnings. In financial terms, compounding is the process in which an interest earns interest, because everyone knows financial, so I'm explaining it in a financial terminology. So just to illustrate, like if you have 100 kwacha growing at 10% per annum rate of interest, it becomes 110 at the end of the first year, adding 10 kwacha. Then if it remains there invested, in the second year, it will not be 10. In the second year, your whole 110 kwacha will earn interest, and you will earn 11 kwacha. So it will get added to that. So it becomes 133 kwacha. And then at the end of the third year, 12.1 is added. So like that, it keeps on compounding. An important consequence of compounding is doubling at fixed interval, which we can see mathematically now. Compounding, it means your fractional change, delta x over x is the fractional change, and delta t divided by delta t gives you the rate of fractional change, which is r, which can be 10% or 7% or 20%, whatever. So simple integration of this delta x over x gives you r delta t, and you integrate from 0 time to a certain time t. At 0 time, the value of that entity is x naught, and at time t it is x. Simple integration of this will give you log x over x naught equal to RT. And when you invert it, it gives you x equal to x naught e to the power RT. So that means a constant growth rate leads to exponential growth. That is a very important formula. A constant growth means the quantity x grows exponentially. And that is where the whole thing lies. You can see a constant growth rate. This is your exponential growth. This is linear growth. Human mind is able to comprehend linear growth generally, but this not exponential. Exponential growth looks small in the beginning, but then it grows very rapidly. Just like in the two illustrations I gave, in the beginning, it was looking like 1 sheet, 2 sheets, 4 sheets, or 1 grain, 2 grain, 4 grain, and the mind could not comprehend that after many doublings, where will this end up? It was huge. So let us find the doubling time, because we were talking of doubling, so the doubling is related to compounding. So doubling means x over x naught. X is the quantity after some time, x naught is the initial. So it becomes 2, which means e to the power r td. So doubling time td is log 2 over r, which is roughly 0.7 over r. So 0.7. So that means the doubling time does not depend on the initial quantity. It simply depends only on the rate of compounding. So the key inference is doubling period is constant, irrespective of the original quantity, and it is independent of the initial size and depends only on the growth rate. So these are important consequences. The rule of thumb generally, because mostly we very often use doubling in financial transactions. So we put the rule of thumb doubling period is equal to 70 over rate, because rate is given generally in percent. So if you make rate in percent, then instead of 0.7, it becomes 70. So 70 by rate in percent is a very useful thumb rule. If your money is growing at 1% per annum, it will take 70 years to double. If you are growing at 4%, it will take 17 years to double. If you put your money in a fixed compounding rate of interest at 10%, in 7 years roughly, this is rough, this is not exact, because that integration was for small infinitesimal time. But here in transaction, in financial terms, the time period is generally a year. So these are approximate, but good enough approximations. So at 14%, it will take 5 years, and at 18%, it will take you 4 years to double. So I would like to quote the case of Warren Buffett, which case is quoted quite often because he was the world's richest man at one time. He's not no more the richest man, but still one of the top richest men in the world, with a staggering a net worth of 73 billion. It could be, each second his net worth changes according to the market capitalization. It could be 70, 72, 74, doesn't matter. What matters is that he started his at a young age of 15 in 1945 with $6,000, and now he is this. So this is equivalent to an average annual growth of about 25%. So effectively, he started with 6,000, which he kept on growing at an average annual growth of 25%, which gives him 73 billion. So it is unthinkable. You can see the growth of his wealth with age. On the horizontal axis is the age, and vertical axis is the wealth. You can see it is like it is exponential again. In the beginning, you can hardly notice, but soon it grows and he becomes the world's richest billionaire at one time and one of the richest person on earth even today. Just look at how the starting age, how it matters, how long you invest and at what rate you invest. Suppose you invested 1,000 kwacha and at an age of 20, and you invested at 20%, then by the time you are 60, if the money remains invested, you don't withdraw, then that 1,000 kwacha becomes 1,470,000 kwacha. If you invested at 18%, then it becomes 750,000 kwacha. So it's a bit of surprising. The rate of interest is not very different, 20 and 18, but your wealth at the age of 60 is nearly half. And at 10%, which is half the rate of interest, so your wealth is not half, your wealth is reduced to something, how much? Something 40 times, somewhere 30, 40 times. Then if you invested the same amount at an age of 30, and it grows at 20% yearly, it gives you 237,000. So you compare with here, if you invested at 20, you had nearly 1.5 million, now you are just 237,000. And same with this. So here you can see both the percent at which you invest, that matters, and the duration, because if you invested at the 20, the duration was more. So the duration for which you invest, that matters. So it is just, I have condensed these. These are the three important things, important factors for savings to grow exponentially. Duration of compounding, that is virtue of early savings and investing. Of course, if you haven't thought of that at a young age, it doesn't matter that it shouldn't matter. It doesn't mean that you have lost the opportunity, but the earlier you do, the better it is. And reinvesting the proceeds so that the compounding takes effect and the rate of growth. So these are the three factors which are important factors in compounding your investment. How to achieve financial independence? It is very easy to say that, but difficult to achieve. Just like many other sayings, you know, you get up early in the morning, you do exercise, you eat less and exercise more, which is good for health. But these things are never heeded until it is too late. So the formula is very simple. You are earning something. A part of that earning should be saved, and your spending should not be more than that. It should be something less than that. And then you invest that, and that investment grows exponentially. So little by little, it becomes a lot, and you achieve financial independence after a certain time. So in saving and investing, some of the golden rules are that, of course, your investments must be safe and secure. You don't want to invest in a product or in some instrument which is insecure and you lose up even your capital. The investment growth gives a decent growth so as to be able to beat the inflation. Otherwise, your money loses value. It should be simple to operate. You know, you don't want too much complexity which the mind cannot grasp. And the investment should be liquid, just in case you need some money to draw back for your emergency, you are able to do that. And of course, there are a number of instruments in Zambia where you can invest. Those instruments are for national development. So once you have the financial independence, you know, you don't need to work for money necessarily. Let the money work for you and you relax. Okay, so this is one part of the talk is over. Now I will be moving into another part, which is the application of this compounding on debt management. If there is still any questions, I can entertain. Otherwise, I will go at the end and then. Okay, the second part is this. I worked it out. So this power of compounding can turn into cost of compounding, because now you are on the other side of the equation. If you are under debt, the debt also grows enormously, compoundingly, and you get deeper and deeper buried into that. I presented this talk to Zambia Institute for Policy Analysis and Research in 2018. So some of the data is from 2018, which is a little old because those figures have changed by now. So now, just like your savings grow, debt also grows exponentially. If you keep rolling over debt through increased borrowing, it will become unmanageable and will explode. When I made this talk to Zipper, these were the figures. As I said, they have changed a bit now. For example, now the debt is not 9.3, it is 11 point something, 11.1 billion, and so on. But still, these figures are quite illustrative. So at that time, your foreign debt was this, our country's domestic debt was this, areas for this. And so the total debt in dollars was roughly 15. It shouldn't matter if it is 15 or 16 or 14, but just to give an idea. Zambian GDP was 25 billion, so debt to GDP ratio was about 60%, which is quite critical. There were talks of refinancing, and still there are talks now. The government is trying to restructure and refinance that. Now, but the question is, how do you refinance? Refinancing is fine, but how do you refinance? And how much to refinance? Should we think of refinancing the principal and the interest, full refinance, or should we refinance the principal only? As I said, if you refinance the whole, then it is like total compounding, and compounding gets out of hand. Just like you are beneficiary, if you have invested it, you are now on the other side and you suffer. So at that time, the sovereign bond, we had $750 maturing in 2022 at this rate of interest, about $1 billion at 8.6%, and $1.25 billion at 8.9%. And Chinese and other loan, we don't know how much it was, and so on. Domestic loan, which is in kwacha, which was varied 15 to 30%, it might have gone up a bit more. So I just estimated that overall average interest is somewhere, just to work out some figure, 10 to 15%. Now, we had estimated the total debt was 15 years, $15 billion. So at 0 year today, when we start the time. Now, if we let it grow, if we don't service it at all, if we let it grow, the total debt, how it increases, you can see. In 5 years' time, it becomes 24 billion, 10 years, and 30 years' time, it becomes $262 billion. If it is growing at 15%, it becomes $993 billion, almost $1 trillion. So, which is staggering, and one can't think of. So this is the graph now showing you debt. This is the 15 million mark, which is at 0, and how the debt is increasing. If it is 15%, the red line shows it is increasing at 15, how it grows. The blue line shows if the debt is compounding at 10%, and black line shows GDP, which I took an average compounding at 5% GDP growth. Right now, our GDP is much lower. At one time, it was higher, but I took an average GDP of 5%. So you can see GDP grows slower while the debt is growing faster. So we will find it more and more difficult to service the debt if we allow it to grow. This one is showing you debt to GDP ratio. Debt to GDP ratio is an important yardstick to judge the sustainability of the debt. Normally, there are different values. They say about 40% debt to GDP is considered the safe. After that, it becomes unsustainable. But there are other factors too, not just that. So we start here when the debt to GDP was 60% at 0 time, and you can see debt to GDP ratio. If debt is compounding at 50%, debt to GDP, how it is growing rapidly. It is growing. It is here. It is 200%, 300%. So the red one, if the debt is growing at 10%, even then debt to GDP. But if debt is compounding at 0%, which means you are servicing the interest, but only let the principal remain, then you can see debt to GDP slowly goes down because your GDP is increasing. So that is the way I suggested how the debt should be handled, that we should keep on servicing all the interest and do not let the debt grow more, and then slowly over the years, debt to GDP ratio will shrink and it will become manageable. So that is the second part, I believe. That part, so first was in the general financial management, your getting financial independence. The second part is devoted to the debt management. And the third part now I will come to understanding of the COVID, how it proliferates, a very simple mathematical model. Again, I'm not an expert in that, and whatever it came into my mind and I worked on it. There are much more complex models available in literature. So I've not gone into complexity, but as an educational tool, probably this model, it can facilitate understanding of how COVID spreads and how it can be contained. Okay, so spread and containment of coronavirus, a simple mathematical model. Let n be the number of actively infected persons at any given time. Like in Zambia, probably it is around, I don't know, maybe less than 1,000 currently active. Ni is the total number of people who have been infected from all time. So total number of people might have been much more who have been infected, who have recovered, or some of them died. And N are the total number of people who have recovered, including the deaths. Deaths are a small fraction, but rather than keeping it separate, I include in that. So the simple equation, of course, this N is Ni minus Nr. The total number of people who have been infected so far, the total number who have recovered. So N is the number which remains active at the moment. Now, number of new infections, that depends on N, how many active cases, because they are the ones who spread the infection. And number of cases recovery also depends on the active infected people. Those who have already recovered doesn't contribute to that. So an infected person comes in contact with a certain number of healthy persons in a unit time, and that unit time generally say per day, and results in infecting some of them. So we define the average rate of infection, Ri, to be the average number of healthy persons infected per actively infected person. Same kind of fraction, delta n by n. N actively infected person result into infecting delta ni people in a time delta t. So this is the rate of infection Ri. So number of healthy people getting infected in a time straight away from this equation, we get delta ni equal to Ri n delta t. Same way we define the average rate of recovery to be the average number of infected persons recovered per infected person per unit time, RR, delta nr over n. A small fraction of n recovers in a time delta t. So the number of people recovered delta nr is given by this. So net increase in the number of people actively infected in a time interval is delta n, because we had that equation, n equal to ni minus nr. So straight away we get delta n equal to delta ni minus delta nr. And if you substitute for delta ni from the previous slide, which was there, delta Ni here and delta Nr here, we get this. So this is equal to Ri minus Rr and delta T. So delta N over N equal to R net over delta, R net times delta T, where R net is just Ri minus Rr. And if we integrate it, just like I did for the compounding equation in the beginning, delta N over N equal to R net delta T, we straight away integrating and putting down the limits, we get N equal to N naught e to the power R net T, where N naught is the number of actively infected person at time t equal to 0. So again, we get the same exponential equation as we got in compounding. And that is why we say that the COVID spreads exponentially. So let me give a few more things on it. It spreads exponentially, and it depends on R. How much is R net? And what is R net? R net is Ri minus Rr. Now, Ri is the rate of infection. The rate of infection depends on the person. Of course, it varies from one person to another, but we took it as an average rate of infection, which depends on how many people are meeting, how closely they are living, or how sparsely they are living, whether they are going in crowd or not. So now RR, the rate of recovery, is more or less natural, natural recovery. There is no other treatment at the moment. So this fact R net more or less depends on RI. So if Ri minus Rr, which is R net, if R net is positive, then this N grows exponentially. It grows up because the exponent of E is positive. So with time, it will grow. If R net is 0, suppose Ri equal to Rr, then N equal to N naught. Then the number of sick people remain constant. If somehow we decrease Ri, then we make it smaller than Rr, then it becomes negative. So the number of infected people decrease exponentially. So this is illustrated in this one. These M1 is the measures, social measures. Ri changes with social measures. If you take extreme social measures like, masking, washing hands, not going in the crowds, keeping social distancing, then Ri, rate of infection, decreases. First let us say you don't take any measures. M1 is the no measure. When you don't take any measure, then your N increases exponentially, fast rate. Then you take some measures, then your Ri decreases. So your M, this is M2. So your M2, so it increases, it still increases, but less rapidly. If you take further measures, then at some point when Ri becomes equal to Rr, so you become, this is like M3 and N becomes constant. And if you are taking very strict measures like lockdown, etc., then Ri becomes very small and the exponent of E is negative. So the rate of the infection, the infected people start decreasing exponentially. So this is just a very simple model to just give a understanding of how COVID increases, how it spreads exponentially, and how it can be contained exponentially through the preventive measures. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Prof, for that wonderful presentation. And we have about 15 minutes in which we can ask questions to Prof.
So maybe I can get away from here. sharing the screen, stop sharing. Okay.
Okay, so we open up for questions.
Hello?
Yes.
Hello? Yes, can I ask a question? Just on the integral that the professor was talking about, where he's getting n is equal to e to the r net t. I noticed the integral before that to the left has got a lower limit of 0. And when you integrate 1 over n, you are getting ln. So what happens to the lower limit of ln?
Okay, let me go to that. Let me go to the slide and look at it. Where is my slide? Share screen. Okay, can I share the screen, please?
Yes, please.
Let me open up that. It's here, huh? No. 0 to t. Okay. No. Okay, no, I have made a mistake. I made a mistake, but the result is correct because this integral delta n over n, at time t equal to 0, the limit should be n because there is a certain number of people who are sick at time t equal to 0. And this should be, no, sorry, at time t equal to 0, it should be n naught. And upper limit should be n. At some other time, it is n. At time t equal to 0, it is n naught. So these limits, I made a mistake. It should be n naught to n. So then you get this. The result is correct, but these limits, I may misplace that. Sorry for that.
But how do you make? Okay, I need to check
it. Will be log. Yeah, it will be log n over n.
You are making the upper limit to be the same variable of integration.
Yeah, it can be different variable.
Okay.
You know, so long as you understand what it means. It is the number, number of people infected at any time. You can call it n prime if you want to.
Okay.
So then it will be n prime here. If you want to make it n naught to n prime, then it will become n prime equal to n naught e to the power r net.
Okay.
But thank you for that correction.
Okay, any more questions? Maybe just a simple one, Prof.
Mm-hmm.
So in the examples that you gave on compounding in terms of investments, I think in almost all the examples, it was a 1 year period. But I understand that sometimes you can compound for less than 1 year periods, let's say 6 months or some shorter period. So in general, which one gives better returns?
That you have to see the rate of interest. What is the rate of interest for 6 monthly return? What is the rate for annual return? So one can calculate which one gives you better returns. For example, I can say from on top of my head, suppose 6 months return is 10% per annum, for example, and 1 year return is, let us say, 15%, then 1 year return is better. But suppose if it is 10%, both 6 months and a year, then 6 monthly is better, but you will need to withdraw, you will need to get the interest at 6 months and reinvest it again.
Okay.
You know, because if it is 6 monthly, you get interest after 6 months, which you can reinvest for the remaining 6 months. So one will have to calculate which comes out better. And also on your requirement, whether you would like to leave the money for a long period or not a long period. Like in the government bonds currently, we have government bonds of 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 7 years, 10 years, 15 years. And the rates of interest are different. Of course, there are other complications also, but one can work out depending on your appetite for how long you want to leave your money and which gives you better returns. And if you can leave your money, if you want to be carefree, if you want for a longer time, yeah, or it also depends on your judgment whether interest rates are likely to increase or decrease in future. If they're likely to increase, you may like to wait rather than invest for a longer time. But if the rate of interest you are getting is high and you think that rate may not be available in future, you can lock in at higher rate for a longer duration. So these are all some of the considerations which one can engage in.
Okay. And for the Zambian banks, typically, what are the interest rates?
Zambian bonds currently are roughly in the range of 30%. You know, the 7-year, I think, is 25%, 10-year and 15-year, they are about 32%. In fact, the last one was 33%, which is quite high, very high. But there you have to weigh the consequences. 33% is enormous growth, but the thing is you have to weigh that depreciation of kwacha. So you have to see how much it will depreciate, it may depreciate, and whether you will get a real return after depreciation. So is it good to keep your money in dollar, or is it good to keep your money invested in kwacha at 33%? But 33% otherwise in general is a fantastic rate of return. If you invest your dollar now internationally anywhere, the rate of return is just about 2%, 1%, 1.5, 2.5, roughly like that.
Okay, thank you, Prof. Any other questions?
Yeah, just to follow up on Dr. Mzundu's question, I want to think that if you are reducing the number of the period for compounding, it's like you are letting the n go to 0. So you end up having, when you have continuous compounding, then you get an exponential function. So you expect that it will be, the returns should be getting higher as the period is reducing.
Yes, the period reducing, return will be higher because now your compounding is every second kind of thing, If it is infinite,
yes, that is if you are maintaining the same interest rate.
Yes. So yeah, so that's why if you get say 6 monthly interest at 10%, in terms of annual rate of interest, you can make a calculation, but it should be, I can say, it should be something like equivalent to 10.5% annual rate of interest. If you get it 3 monthly, for example, 10% rate of interest, on top of my head, it could be somewhere maybe 10.7% rate of interest annually. If it is yearly, if it is monthly, it could be 10.75, 10.8, somewhere there. So as you shorten the period, if you keep the rate of interest same, effective rate of annual interest will increase. But it is not dramatic, it is little, but it does increase.
Okay. All right, any other questions?
Just a question. Thanks for the presentation, Prof. When you talked about debt, the debt situation in the country, would you advise someone to get a long-term debt, like a mortgage, for example, for a period of 20 years. I don't know, I think the bank rates now, I think from 30% going up. That's the first question. Second is, as Zambians, I don't know, we don't like investing in liquid assets. We would rather invest in something like land, where you can put up a house long term. Can you say the value of land? Can you use exponential growth to model the value of land? So for example, if I buy a piece of land in a reasonable area, can you model the value of that land, say 20 years, 30 years from now? That's the second question. Thanks.
Okay. Question number one, what I understood was that should the government engage in having the long-term debt? Am I correct?
No, on a personal level, would you advise someone to get into a mortgage, for example, which is quite a long-term debt?
Oh, mortgage, you mean you build a house and borrow from the bank, or
yes, for 20 years.
No, not at all. You will be killed now in current climate. Interest rates are so high. Even I heard about the university that they wanted to borrow to pay our gratuities. Although personally, I will be benefiting, others will be benefiting because our gratuities and benefits have been stuck up for 10 years. But if I were at the helm of the institution, I will never ever do that. That is a killing thing. That is postponing the thing, and and the impact will be much bigger later on. So at this time, at such a time, what we have today with high interest rate, mortgage should be taken only if that can save you from death. Otherwise, don't take mortgage. Then, second question, and that kind of thing comes with that slide which I showed you. One, this comes with certain time, financial independence which you get by investing. And you might have seen that if you remember what a wise person said, save part of your income and begin now. For the man with a surplus controlled circumstances, and the man without a surplus is controlled by circumstances. When you have a surplus, you can control your circumstances. But when you borrow and when you don't have, then you are controlled. Your circumstances are beyond you. Of course, there are businesses and people do borrow, and big businesses also borrow, but their borrow is done after very meticulous planning and calculations. Those borrowings are done only when the returns are much higher than the rate of interest which is being paid, so that you can pay back the interest out of the income which you generate out of those ventures. So coming to your second question on land, whether it can also be modeled. Land also is a good asset. Of course, it is not as liquid as in fixed deposit or government bond or like that, but it is also a very useful asset. And the rate of increase is difficult to assign. But of course, if you use the past data, one can assign past long-term data and a lot of data, one can assign a certain value that the price of land has been escalating at a certain average rate of return per year. As you see, land is very erratic. It will rise sporadically, then it will become static, or it may even come down. Then it may rise again for some years, it may come down. So it is not a constant, but using the past data, one can assign a certain value that it has been like effectively increasing at such and such rate. Once you get the rate, then modeling is straightforward. You have that equation exponential, you put in the rate, and you get everything. And you can calculate the doubling period with that thumb rule, 70 divided by the rate, and you know how much time it will take to double that. But of course, the growth will not be constant. It will be sporadic. Sometimes it can be more, sometimes it can be less.
Okay, so we've overshot the time, probably can accommodate one or two burning questions, if there are still any. If not, then we thank Professor for the presentation. That was quite some enlightening financial literacy in part, and other aspects as well. Thank you so much, Prof. And thank you everybody for coming.
Welcome, thank you.
Sure, and I think we look forward to another presentation in the series from ZAMSA. So we should just be on the lookout. I think information will be sent on what the next presentation should be. So thanks everybody, good day, and stay safe.
Thank you very much, everyone, and ZAMSA organizers. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you everyone and good day.